Hey everyone, I thought I should do a video about my friend Scott and why I'm trying to raise money for him. It's all on his GoFundMe page, but it's a lot. I think there's over 26 updates now. I'll put the link in the description. First, I'm Lisa. I met Scott in junior high. Not going to say how long ago that was. We lost touch over the years and then reconnected as Facebook friends in 2010 and real friends again in 2019. When we started talking pretty much every day. In 2023, Scott was working 2 jobs, as he had been for around 20 years, maybe more. He worked full-time, plus on-call 24/7 as a grocery store basic maintenance manager. Basically, he kept everything running and repaired and built everything that needed building. He also worked part-time as a bouncer at a bar. Early in 2023, he left the job at the grocery store due to an extremely toxic work environment. Honestly, it was horrible. By May, he found a new job, which he was going to be starting in a few weeks. Then he was attacked while working at the bar by someone he thought was a friend. The guy sucker punched him in the side of the head with brass knuckles and left a permanent dent and a traumatic brain injury. At first, it didn't seem that bad. He had some stuttering issues and he didn't remember part of what happened to him, which is pretty common in head injuries. But as time went on, things got worse. He developed tinnitus and vertigo. The stuttering is permanent whenever he's stressed or in a lot of pain. And he's in a lot of pain more and more often. He developed excruciating headaches. He would tell me the pain was 23, 24, 25 on a scale of 10. And you have to understand, Scott has extremely high pain tolerance. Broken bones, he's frequently called them a little sore. The headaches are regular, and he sometimes gets them for multiple days in a row. And they started with the attack in May. He also started randomly falling a week or 2 after the attack, and until I saw it happen myself in late 2024, it was just assumed the falls were due to vertigo. But thanks to me seeing it, we know something else is going on, because he's completely unconscious and then he falls. Unfortunately, workers' comp has completely failed him. For starters, while he had a CT scan the night of the attack, there was no follow-up. Despite the fact it's well known, fractures don't always appear on scans immediately and can take up to 2 weeks to be visible. So they should have done a new one in a couple of weeks and didn't. Scott's family doctor finally ordered a follow-up in late 2025 and discovered that he has a calcified fracture exactly where he was hit. Because it's calcified, there's nothing can be done to fix it. He was sent to several specialists who were paid by workers' comp, who all based their reports off a neuropsychologist report, a guy who's known to be completely useless, who basically claimed there was nothing wrong with Scott. Meanwhile, at his first attempt at rehab that he finally got in late 2023, he went unconscious, which they were warned would happen if his head was turned a certain way, and they decided, nope, we're not doing anything more, because they were too freaked out by him going unconscious, even though they were warned. And then he was finally sent for physiotherapy in late 2024. He was going 3 times a week from late October until mid-February, and then workers' comp decided that it wasn't helping for some reason and abruptly pulled him from treatment with just a few days' notice. It had been making a huge difference for him. It would reduce his pain, increase his strength and mobility, but they decided that wasn't good enough, I guess. The abrupt end with no time to transition or get home exercises resulted in him losing all the progress he had made within a couple of weeks of going home. And his doctor has told him he can't work at all, largely because of the brain injury and the falls, but he's also had multiple heart attacks. And until July 2025, workers' comp was paying part of his wages from his part-time job, since that was his only employment at the time. It's not anywhere near enough to live on, even in a low-cost area, when he lives in a very high-cost area. Friends and family were even supplementing that, mostly one friend who can't help anymore, unfortunately. And since July 2025, Workers' Comp cut him off from any assistance, financial or medical. I started the GoFundMe in 2025 in January, and the 19 months since then, I've raised about $8,600. Unfortunately, that isn't anywhere near enough to live on. So since July 2025, his main support has been his retired mother, with random help from other family and friends. And he also pulled out his entire small retirement fund to pay off some of his bills. Unfortunately, welfare counts any help he receives as income and claims he makes too much for them to help him unless he sells his house and lives on the street until he can get into subsidized housing, which has a massive wait list. So yeah, a disabled man who randomly falls living on the street is what they want. He's applied for disability, or tried to. The paperwork keeps getting lost at the doctor's office. He tried to apply for EI, but because he waited until he was cut off by Workers' Comp, even though he paid into EI his entire life and never used it, he can't get it because it's been too long since he worked. And after repeated attempts by his doctor to get Workers' Comp to admit his issues are real and serious, in October, his family doctor finally ordered the follow-up CT scan he should have had years before that found the skull fracture and damage to his brain. She got an appointment with a neurosurgeon in November 2025 for November 2026. She also finally got him into a pain clinic in July 2025, where they discovered he has fractures in his C1 vertebra from the attack, which probably explains some of the head pain, and the damage to his neck and muscles, which appear to have also caused a severe case of sciatica, with pain so bad that instead of being occasionally in a wheelchair, being permanently one seems a better option to him than living with the pain. The pain clinic decided to do steroid shots in his neck to try to stop some of that pain. The first shot did help after a few days, and a stroke about 8 hours after the shot. Unfortunately, not his first minor stroke since he was attacked, and he's also had multiple TIAs. The second shot was put into the wrong nerve and actually made his pain much worse. Apparently there's nothing they can do about it, and he just has to live with it until it can go away. He went to the pain clinic again last week, and they tested for if he can have shots to help with the sciatic pain, and that will be happening at some point. He's on the cancellation list for that, so who knows when that'll be. So here we are. He finally sees a neurosurgeon in November, and hopefully he's going to see someone soon who can get him in for brain imaging and an MRI, neither of which have ever been done by Workers' Comp. Because so much time has passed, though, most or all of his issues are permanent, although hopefully there's still options for relieving his pain. It's going to be extremely difficult for him to work, although hopefully he'll be approved for disability soon. Unfortunately, none of us who've been helping him are wealthy. In fact, we're all struggling and still trying to help him stay fed and housed. We could really use some help, which is why the GoFundMe is still up. If you can share this video or donate, it would be such a huge help. Thank you.